Thank you so much, Bill. Thank you guys so much for coming. Yeah, so as discussed, I'm Melanie, that's Justin, this is Thibaut. We're the RAM Forensics team. We are more than happy to field any questions during the presentation, so don't be shy, but we also will take questions at the end as well. All right, without further ado, Justin, you want to take it over?
Good morning, everyone. Again, just to reiterate, we definitely like questions along the way. It's easier to address the questions as they come up and the slides are up. So jump in, throw your hand up, call out, doesn't matter. 2015 was an interesting year in cybersecurity. There were quite a few computer intrusion incidents. You couldn't go a couple weeks without seeing something in the news about one business getting attacked and then another. Some of those companies were able to use their own internal investigation teams to determine what happened with the incident. Others had to bring in an incident response team. Okay, get that. National Institute of Standards and Technology has identified an incident response team in a cyclical cycle of 6 points, starting with preparation, going into detection analysis, where you're going to identify, you'll send the team in, you'll grab your forensic images, collect your samples, and try to identify what happened during that incident. Once you've identified it, you go on to containment, and containment, you're trying to obviously contain the malware so it doesn't exfil or do any other malicious activity, followed by eradication. Eradication, you're trying to clean up your system and get back to where you were before that incident. Recovery, that is the getting back to your original state prior to the incident. Post-incident activity, your follow-up, your notes, get together with your team, identify the techniques that you used, what worked, what didn't work, and what can you do better. And again, as I said, it's cyclical. We go back to preparation, preparing for the next time and updating everything from the post-incident activity, all the notes from there. Today we're going to focus on one aspect of the 6, and that's detection and analysis. Detection and analysis can be broken down into 3 major categories. The first being network forensics. Network forensics is going to, in the simplest terms, be broken down into packet capture analysis and log analysis. You'll have a team going out, grabbing everything you can from that site, analyzing the network packets, analyzing the logs, try to identify what infection vector was there, how did they get in, and what did they drop. Anything that they find in this category, they feed over to the reverse engineering team. Any binaries, anything that needs to be deeper looked into, reverse engineering team will then go in and start analyzing. At the same time, you have a host-based forensics team. That's broken down in the simplest terms as to the hard drive forensics and the memory forensics. Hard drive forensics are going to go out. It's a long task of getting a forensic image of the hard drive, making a determination after you've processed that forensic image, going through, finding out what's not supposed to be there, what's different. Memory forensics is what we're going to focus on today. Again, one small aspect of detection and analysis. Memory forensics is going to be the aspect of going through the RAM forensics on the network, on each individual machine, and get a sample and analyze inside that sample. Maybe you could get there quicker than the host-based, the hard drive forensics team can. So why memory forensics? 2016 has been already a lot of conversation about encryption, a lot of debates back and forth, what we need to do with encryption, how are we going to defeat encryption. Well, one thing to consider is the decryption key that you may be looking for might be found in memory, and it's often overlooked. The other aspect is the rootkit. All right, sorry about that. The rootkit paradox. A rootkit is designed to hide itself from the user, but yet it still needs to operate the source code to accomplish the mission for what it was derived for. To do that, you have simple computing physics that you can't undo. That source code has to be uploaded into memory to execute. It has to be unpacked, it has to be deobfuscated. So a rootkit should be running in memory, and you should be able to extract that out in its purest form by doing memory forensics. Something to consider why we would do memory forensics. So again, when you are doing memory forensics, what are some of the things that you can find in memory? As I've already mentioned, encryption keys. Full content network packets can actually be derived from memory. It's not going to be a whole session from a long period of time, but whatever the kernel's been operating on and still resident in memory, you can actually dump some raw PCAP and go through there. You might be able to get something that you should be able to get it from the logs anyway, but you might be able to get some actual files out of it that you weren't able to get elsewhere. Injected code's a big one. A lot of the techniques for malware designers are to take a legitimate process, do code injection, inject the malicious activity into a legitimate process. That actual source code can be derived from memory when you dump that process and give it to your reverse engineering team. Hidden processes. Hidden processes are another aspect that malware is going to try to hide from you. If you dump memory using memory analysis tools, which we'll show you today, you can go through and find some of those hidden processes that you wouldn't see in the userland area. Unpacked versions of programs, another good aspect. Malware designers are now, well not now, they have been for a while, obfuscating their code and packing their code so it can't be readily signatured, and sometimes they're using custom packers to do that, so it's just part of the reverse engineering team's responsibility to go and determine how the packer worked, how to unpack the software if you find it off of the hard drive. If you get it out of memory, you don't need to, it's already unpacked. And again, previously closed processes, that can be obtained from memory as well. Memory acquisition is important to understand that it's a snapshot of the current state of that machine at that moment. If you were to do the same process 3 minutes later, your results are going to be different. It's not a repeatable result. It's a repeatable process, but not a repeatable result. That's because memory is volatile. Stuff pages in, pages out. Let me get out from underneath here. Now this is working. Stuff pages in, pages out, and you're not going to get the same sample. So you need to understand that when you capture now may be slightly different if you capture in a few minutes. So in the traditional forensic sense that we're all used to, it's not an image. It's more of a snapshot because an image needs to be repeatable, and it's not repeatable. What are some of the acquisition challenges for grabbing memory? One, the size of the capture tool. If you have a small sample of memory that you need to capture and you have a large GUI-based capture tool, you have the possibility when you install and run that program, again, computer physics, it has to run in memory to run that forensics tool that you're running. You may overwrite the malware that you're trying to capture. So you need to consider that. You need to know your environment and what you're looking for when you go out. When you're out on the team, incident response team, you may want to be covert. You may not want to know if it's the victim. They probably are already there. They know that you're doing it, but maybe you're doing it for a different reason. If you're trying to be covert, think of USB. Your tools are probably on the USB that you're going to go to the site with. When you put it into the computer, you're going to leave artifacts behind. There's going to be a registry that you put your thumb drive in there. There's going to be processes created that you just ran. If they have a keylogger, all of that can be noticed. The final thing, size of the memory you're trying to collect. That goes back to the capture tool as well. You need to know the environment you're going to, how large of this memory sample is, and how long is it going to take. If you're looking for something, you have the possibility of the malware swapping out. As a graphical representation of that, we have here, I'll point to this one over here, we have a large physical memory slot here. This is actual physical memory. This is our acquisition tool location, and this is the malware we're trying to capture. So if the malware tool is too slow or the memory is too long, as you can see, the malware can actually page out during the acquisition of our memory sample and page back in a previous location and a memory address that our tool's already captured. In this scenario, at the end of your memory capture, your tool will say it was a successful memory capture. It doesn't know if it grabbed the malware or not. So it's something to consider when you know that the malware needs to be there and you grab sample and you go back and look and it's not in your memory sample. It may be in the page file. So, acquisition tool considerations. Again, you need to know your environment. I can't stress that enough. You need to know as an incident response team where are you going, what's their environment. It's going to depend on which tools you're going to use. You need to know the operating system. Some tools work for Windows, some work for Linux, some work for both, but you need to know which tool to take for the operating system that you're going to capture on. Size of the capture tool, again, a large tool on a small memory set could overwrite you have a higher probability of overwriting your memory sample if it's actively in memory. And how long does it take that capture tool to work? In the previous slide, as we saw, if it takes too long, your memory may actually have some defensive mechanisms built into it, or just by natural page out of the memory. Analysis tools. Again, the analysis is going to be a little different than the acquisition. It's a little more sophisticated. It depends on what you're looking for. If you have a simple crimeware piece of malware that's not that difficult, you may use an easier tool such as Mandiant Redline. That might just the GUI-based tool that can show it to you, and that's all you need to do. If it's a real nasty APT threat malware, you may need to get into more He-Man style command line tools like Volatility or Rekall. Then finally, live versus static analysis. That depends on the site that you're at and what kind of access you need. I've never done a live analysis myself. I've always had the opportunity to go out, grab a snapshot of memory, take it back to a lab and do my own analysis. I've never done one on site, but you may be in a scenario where you need to do it on site. You don't have the luxury of grabbing a sample and taking it back. So certain tools coupled with certain analytical tools will allow you to do a live analysis. As we get on into the presentation, we're going to have slides and scenarios of memory capture and different tools that we used. Just wanted to let you know the test environment. It was done on a laptop that's running an i7 2.8 gigahertz. It's a Windows 8.1 Pro 64-bit operating system, and it was run on 32 gigs of RAM. So what are some of the different acquisition tools that are out there? I couldn't list them all. It would be too many words on one slide. But we do have quite a few listed here for acquisition tools. They all have different functionality. The ones on the left over here are either open source or freeware, so that's readily available for anyone to use and play with. The other ones are commercial. Some of the commercial stuff is really good, but also costs money. So for our scope of our presentation here, we stuck with the free tools, either open source or freeware. Again, analytical tools. There are quite a few out there. Each has its pros and cons. It depends on what you're looking for, what you need to do with the memory. Some of the ones Melanie's going to go through will point out some of the key ones that are very popular in memory forensics today. Some of the other new ones coming up, which are interesting. We're going to talk about Rekall, but that's an interesting one. Evolve is a newer version of, I guess, what's the right way to say it? It's a GUI plugin for Volatility through your internet browser. So for those that don't like command line, they're trying to make Volatility more user-friendly with a GUI interface. It's interesting, but not as fun as command line. Now I'm going to hand it over to Melanie, and she'll go through the different acquisition and analysis tools.
All right. Thank you, Justin. So I'll be talking about WinPmem, Memoryze, and FTK Imager. They're easy to use, they're easy to implement, and they also do really effective memory capture. So first, WinPmem. It was developed by Michael Cohen, open source, and so it's usually used to get a static capture. But if you couple it, but when you couple it with Rekall, you're able to do a live memory analysis. It's also important to note that it was kind of designed for Windows, so it doesn't do Linux. So another thing to point out, to refer back to what Justin was talking about with the test environment, we wanted to see how much space it took up on the memory. So it has to load itself into the memory for you to use it. So with WinPmem, it left a 60 megabyte footprint, and it took 8 minutes to capture the 32 gigs of RAM. So Memoryze is next. It's developed by Mandiant. Mandiant, that's like the incident response. And it's a division of FireEye. It's freeware. One important thing to note is that it outputs in XML, and basically, when you do memory capture, it's in raw format. And with this, the output is in XML, so you have to use Mandiant Redline to see your output or an XML viewer. So it's kind of a drawback because, you know, if you want to use different tools, you can't. So that's just another thing to point out. It also can conduct live memory analysis. So again, this is from the user manual, so you could see that it supports Windows. And it left a 7 megabyte footprint, and it took 11 minutes to capture. So FTK Imager is a GUI tool. I'm sure, how many of you guys know FTK Imager? I'm sure, all right, a goodly amount. I know Justin does. It's a beast of a tool. There's so many things you can do with it. With memory capture, it's extremely basic. So, I mean, it just takes a couple clicks of a button, it can capture the memory. And the footprint is 42 megabytes, but as you can see, the time it took was only 1.5 minutes. So this is a really good representation when you look at all of them together. As you can see, I'll look over here. So you see the footprint that left the biggest footprint was WinPmem, and Memoryze was only 7 megabytes, but as you can see, FTK Imager only took 1.5 minutes. Okay, so now we're going to switch to analysis tools, Mandiant Redline, Volatility, and Rekall. Mandiant Redline is a GUI tool. Volatility and Rekall are command line. So Mandiant, again, developed a division of FireEye freeware, and it can incorporate indicators of compromise. So it uses signatures from previously identified malware. So you kind of keep it in a folder, so you already have everything. And the longer that you've been in the industry and been doing this, the more indicators of compromise, more signatures you collect. And so when you're using the tool, it'll ask you, about indicators of compromise, and you can direct it to the folder. So when it does a quick analysis, it can go through everything and provide you with things that have already been discovered, the signatures that they already know about. And it also produces a timeline of events, and you'll see it when we do the demo. So you can see when processes were first initiated. Okay, and volatility, I've heard a lot of presenters, I've noticed, I don't know about you guys, but have talked about volatility. It's huge. It's a really big deal in the industry now. Everybody uses it. It's powerful. It's a He-Man tool. And it's open source, very powerful. And it has so many plugins. These are just a handful of the most popular ones. People keep writing new plugins to kind of keep up with the times. So we're going to be using a few of these. So one thing to note is image info is critical because you can determine what operating system the memory capture is from, and then from that you can determine the volatility profile. plist lists the processes, process ID, parent process ID, etc. PSScan, you can see the terminated processes and what's hidden. Malfind, you can see injection code that was in the physical memory dump, and then proc dump and DLL dump, you can kind of extract more of the memory. So last but not least is Rekall. It's a branch off of Volatility. It's very similar. Open source, command line, again, very fast. And it's session oriented, so you can capture the memory and you can process it, and then you can come back to it. You don't have to reanalyze everything all over again. And as you can see, the plugins are the same. They're very similar. And this is an overview where you can kind of compare everything and the benefits that I talked about earlier.
Well, we have a question.
Oh. Well, with Rekall, well,
they're designed for Linux operating systems, but there are Volatility has some Windows adaptability. They have some ways to run it into a Windows environment. They're designed for, and I've only ever used them in the Linux world, but you can run them on Windows platform. I haven't tested Rekall on Windows, but again, since it's a technology fork of Volatility, they have Volatility working there. They probably have Rekall.
Any flavor of Linux like SUSE, Red Hat, Ubuntu?
I believe it works in all of them. I haven't tested on all of them. I'm a Ubuntu guy myself, but I haven't heard any problems on any of the other platforms.
Are there any of these tools that run on Mac OS 10?
I'm an anti-Mac guy myself, so I haven't tested it. I guess that's the easiest answer. I haven't tested and I hadn't looked into any of those, so I don't know the answer to that.
Are the open source sources available?
Yes, I have seen.
So it can be built.
I have seen stuff for building them in the OS X, but I haven't had any experience with that whatsoever.
Thank you for your questions. So we have the additional resources for you guys, and then are there any more questions before we do the demo? Yes, sir.
You talked about testing various command line versions of this. You know, in my testing, it was hit or miss in a lot of these. Like what the Mandiant one I think was horrible for us. The dump it was popular. But was there one command line program that you found for the acquisition that just seemed to be the most stable, most reliable, most consistent out of all of them? And actually, there was one case we wanted to be somewhat covert about it. People say command line, but it still kind of required an interactive prompt or something at the at the console level. It wasn't like you can just run a command remotely and execute. So any experience with any of that?
There are some remote acquisition tools that you could use that would help. It would be a network process, and it would show a little bit there, but you could be covert, like F-Response can do that. It's a commercial tool. Command line, most of my acquisition, I've been able to do FTK Imager, but it's a GUI-based tool, so I'm in the Explorer userland area. Command line, the few that I've used, WinPmem has been my go-to. I've had no problems with WinPmem executing that. I kind of stay away from Memoryze. I don't like the output of Memoryze. And I really did like WinPmem.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
You mentioned that the encryption keys are stored in memory.
Yes.
This is on Windows machines, I assume?
Yes.
And what versions of Windows? Did you test this on Windows 10?
No. We started Windows 8.1, and I've had some experience in Windows XP, Windows 7, Windows 8, and Windows 8.1 for my work. But for this environment, it was Windows 8.1. I haven't played around with Windows 10 at all, but I have
Windows
read.
10 is a different animal.
Yes, I have read
Microsoft
whether.
has invested a lot of money and a lot of resources in securing Windows 10 well above the level of previous operating systems.
I understand from what little research I've done that they're uploading the keys and encrypting the keys, and
Right.
Also randomizing where that's going as well.
Right.
So it is
It's
a
going to be
huge
a
challenge.
whole different landscape in a couple of years when Windows 7 and 8 are retired.
Yes, it's an interesting world as well with Volatility, because it's a bunch of us out there that are doing the research and writing the Python scripts that are plugins for Volatility. So there's already some great work that's being done to test that, and once it's approved by the community, then it's part of an additional plugin that goes into Volatility, which is why I'm not a salesperson for Volatility, but this is why I love Volatility so much, because when you have a user group as us out there, and we see the work and we're developing the tools for it, it just keeps perpetuating us to be able to use a tool, and it always stays relevant. I assume Rekall will be the same way. Rekall was neat to use. It was just, I guess, old habits for me to keep falling back into Volatility.
I'd suggest you do some of this development work and research on the Windows 10 platform. It's free for now.
Yes.
Because I think you're going to find that some of these tools may not work at all, and others will fail intermittently. But this would be a good time to start while it's free.
Yeah, that's a good point. Excellent point.
Awesome.
Any other questions? Oh, sorry.
When you were talking about decryption keys again, or encryption keys again, are you just talking for BitLocker or other full disk encryption products like McAfee disencryption or semantical disencryption, TrueCrypt?
The TrueCrypt has actually been tested and done in Volatility 2.4 and 2.5. They have TrueCrypt plugins now that will go through, pull out the passphrase, pull out the keys. That's been well tested and pretty easy to do. BitLocker has some newer technology. I was actually trying to finish off a test scenario that I could show you at lunch, but I wasn't able to finish, where you can actually use a USB to BitLocker. You can USB the BitLocker, I'm sorry, BitLocker the USB, and then extract the key, the full, the FVEK, the full volume encryption key out of memory. And then there's a BitLocker plugin that was developed for Volatility where you can pass it the key and mount using BDE mount. You'd mount that volume and decrypt the whole volume from pulling it out of memory. I haven't got it done fully to show it as a demonstration, but we're mostly there. We ran out of time, unfortunately. But yeah, BitLocker, I haven't tested some of the other ones, but there's a lot of research that's being done on pulling the keys out and where they're located. Does that answer your question?
Is TrueCrypt storing its keys unencrypted?
No, there's plugins that people have developed for TrueCrypt to go to the location and pull it out. I don't know if they're unencrypted. I don't think.
Well, I mean, how would you pull it out? What good would it do you if it's encrypted?
Well, the Python script that was developed extracts the key, and I think it's the hash, and passes the hash to it and to decrypt the volume.
Okay.
All right, if there's no other questions, we're going to move on to the live demonstration. We've chosen to do a live demonstration as opposed to a video. So in our scenario, our incident response team's gone out and we've collected a memory sample of the victim machine. I've taken it back to my analyst Thibaut, and he's going to show you how he's going to analyze that memory sample.
Okay, good morning everyone. Can you see all right? Can you read? Oh, okay. Give me 1 second. Is this better? Okay. So, our scenario, as Justin just said, I'm the analyst, and basically I've got my memory sample. I don't know anything about it, and I need to figure out the problem with it, and eventually point out what the malicious behaviors are in this. So the first thing, we're going to use Mandiant Redline. We choose to use this software because it gives you a good overview of the memory sample. It's GUI-based, so it's easier to see and to navigate around. So we get to the process view at first, and this process view is list all the process of the snapshot of the memory. So as Justin said, at that time it's just a snapshot. So we get every process that are launched at that time and running. And this view will list all the process by Memoryze score. This score is malware risk index by Mandiant Redline. So basically they will figure out each process and give it a score. And depending on this score, the process might be flagged in red right here or not. The score scale is from 0 to 100. And you can see in our memory sample, no process have been flagged. The higher one is 57. And we kind of need to be careful with this score because it can bring up false positive. So we don't have any information with the Memoryze score. So what I want to do next is look at our different processes and their names in particular, because you know a lot of them, I think. A lot of these names, you know them. So you know that these processes are certainly, hopefully not malicious. So I will try to look for name of processes that are not usual. Can you see one? Which one?
You had it at the bottom earlier. It was, AELAS.exe.
Yeah, okay. So you're right, we're going to focus on this process for now. So looking at this process, this process got a PID of 1984 and a parent ID of 1724. So this 1724, we look for it and we see that it's explorer.exe. So what it tells us is that this process, ALAS.exe, has been launched at a user level by the explorer.exe. And what we can point out next is that this process is launched directly on the desktop. So it's kind of weird and fishy. So next view we're going to use is the hierarchical one. This view brings you a parent process grouping. So you can see the different process under its parents. And if we go at the bottom, we can see our process that is launched by explorer.exe. So now I'm going to look for details about this process because it's intriguing me a lot. So I'll click on it and I cannot give me, yeah, okay. So I've got the details here. At the bottom, you can see different things you can look for. I'm going to show you the strings. So the strings, I need to show you the bar because that's kind of, you can see there are a lot of them. Good luck in looking into that, but you can actually find useful information such as injected code or unexpected behavior in this, but it's a really tedious task, so we're not going to bother with it right now. You can also look into the handles for handles that are flagged. If we go at the bottom, we got a couple of undetermined one, but if we go here, we can see some untrusted handles. And if I keep going, I can find a list of mutants. So these are processes that are created and that match other non-processed. And so basically, they create a copy and they will put injected code in it. And these mutants will take place of the rightful ones and act maliciously, obviously. Next, we can look at the ports. Looking at the ports, we find out that our process is opening a UDP port, 5565, which can receive any remote IP address. And this process has an unknown state, which means that we don't really know in which way it works. So it can actually work both ways and harvest data and inject code as well. So we don't really know much about this connection, but it actually opens a connection to a remote host. When we are done with this, we can go into the timeline. The timeline is a nice overview. It lists our different process in a timed manner with the different timestamps. And it also brings the different connections and ports that have been opened in addition to the process list. And we can, I need to, yeah. So going at the bottom, we can see our process that is here. Is right here, and we can see 3 UDP ports open right after, and one of them, yeah, I cannot show you everything when I'm zoomed in. Okay, so we see again our process opening a port, and what I wanted to point out in the timeline also is that we are at a user level, and we can see that our process is launched actually 4 days after everything else. And right after being launched, these three UDP ports are opened. Okay, so we got a culprit now, and we have done a lot of work into determining what can be malicious, but I'm going to show you a little bit more in volatility. I'm going to show you basically how to use volatility, the first steps to take, and then we're going to make sure we found the culprit.
5 minutes.
Okay. So going into volatility, first thing you will want to do is export the location of your malware sample, memory sample. So you will want to export the file location that will, in Linux-based system,
Middle mouse button.
yeah. In Linux-based system, this will put the path of the file into environmental variables. So it saves it basically. First plugin that you will want to run. These are, I will use basically the plugins that Melanie showed you earlier. You need to know that there are more than 50 different plugins for volatility, so we can really dig a lot with this software. So you will want to run the image info plugin. This plugin will determine the profile of your memory sample, and you need from this information to get the operating system version. So looking at this, we get 2 operating systems. One actually, we don't really know if it's XP, SP2 or SP3, but if you look down, you can see right here that we got WinXP Service Pack 2. So next, same as the file location, you will export this profile. So you just do export variety profile, and it's set up. So then you can work on your memory sample and use your different plugins. So I'm going to show you the first plugin, which is PS list, and this plugin basically will list all the process, such as the process view from Mandiant Redline. So you will get kind of same layout in the end. You can get another view, basically the hierarchical view, by using PS3. So using PS3, you can get the hierarchical view, and you can see how it's done. And again, our process is still right here. We can see it. Next plugin that you will want to use. So you will get more information using this than Mandiant Redline. PSCAN will give you a list of the process, but not only the process that we got earlier, but also the different process that have been closed. You can get hidden and closed process from PSCAN. So I've showed you the different view. Now we're going to use a plugin that can be used at the beginning of a search of malicious code. You will basically use the plugin Malfind. This plugin will search into the user memory for injected code or DLLs, hidden DLLs. So you use Malfind. And you get a lot of different results. So you need to dig into this. It's basically a good plugin to run at the beginning if you have no idea what to look for. you run this and you get some suspicious behavior. And if we look into this, we can see that our process is again flagged by this plugin. So now that I have done this, I want to be sure that this process is bad or not. So to make sure that this process is behavior and if it's malicious or not, I will dump the process into an executable file. If I need to do further investigation, I can also drop the DLLs that are linked to this process. So by using two plugins. So the first one, I will do a WinPmem dump. So this will drop, as I said, the process into an executable file. You can see that I link the PID. So, okay, it's done. Success. I've dropped the process. And yeah, as I said, for further investigation, you can also dump the different DLLs associated to this process, and your reverse engineering team can then dig into them. So we have dumped our process. No.
That was under Chrome.
Yeah, but it's not coming.
Right here.
Yeah, I click on it. Oh, okay. So once you're done dumping your file, you can go on virustotals.com, and this site will basically analyze your process with different antiviruses and tells you what's up. So I choose a file, I scan it. It's already been analyzed, and we can see that our process have been flagged by 43 antivirus out of 56. Looking into it, we can see that a couple of occurrences of Sality. So just for you to know, Sality is a really complex malware as of today. Really, I would say state-of-the-art malware. What it does is opening a peer-to-peer connection, and using this peer-to-peer connection, it will relay spam, proxying communications. It can exfiltrate sensitive data, compromise your web servers, and coordinate distributed task computing stacks. So yeah, it's really nasty virus. Thank you for your attentions. That's all for me.
That's our presentation. Any other final questions? Yes.
The one tool that shows the timestamps of opening ports, I mean, that's actually was extracted from the memory?
Was that Mandiant Redline?
Yes.
The GUI one?
Yeah.
Yes, that's extracted from memory. It'll tell you the time that process was initiated and when those ports were opened. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you.